Well, hey everybody, this is Chris DiFurio with Keys to the Shop, and welcome to another edition of Shift Break. Today's episode is brought to you by La Marzocco. They have been making espresso machines for, nearly 100 years by hand in Florence, Italy. That is a long time to be serving the needs of coffee retailers around the world. It's why it's a household name. It's why some of the best coffee bars use La Marzocco. Beauty, dependability, innovation. La Marzocco has been leading the charge in amazing espresso machines for a very long time. If you go to their website, lamarzocco.usa.com, you can look for all of the different configurations and kinds of machines, from the Leva, the more traditional pulling a shot kind of manual machine, to the classic Linea, the Linea PB, one of my favorites that I like to recommend to people. I love working on that machine. You have also things like the KB90 machine with the straight-in locking portafilters for ergonomics and auto flush in the group heads. There is just a world of different options to suit your needs. So again, lamarzocco.usa.com, but you can also check out their email. That's right. Just email them, info@lamarzocco.usa.com, and one of their sales folks will walk you through the process of finding the right gear for your cafe. So if you're in the market for an amazing espresso machine, then I really highly recommend La Marzocco, lamarzocco.usa.com. Today's episode is also brought to you by Rattleware.com. Rattleware has been around for quite a long time, and one of the things about Rattleware is they want to design smallwares that just work. And we know, because if you are a coffee professional, you need things to work. You need the little things to work, because when smallwares don't work, it's a big problem. And Rattleware agrees. That's why they want to be simply kind of the glue that holds the cafe together. It's, pitchers and shot glasses, whisks and knock boxes and stuff like that, that really makes a difference for the experience a barista has, which then in turn creates a great experience for the customer. So if you're looking for great smallwares, check them out. Again, the website is at rattleware.com. Okay, everybody. Well, today I wanted to talk to you about something that I have been coaching my clients on for a little bit now, and that is creating somewhat of a story-based approach to creating buy-in to your values and to your policies, and especially around the values. So when I walk through this with clients, we often will create a values document that details how these particular behaviors and habits actually look in the cafe. And it is really, in my opinion, helpful to illustrate what it looks like to live out these values, so that when you do see those occasions come up, you can see, oh, that's what I read about. That's the thing that they were talking about. It's not just a matter of saying, you do this, you don't do that, and creating a bullet point list of directives. You give a for example for your baristas to look at. So giving those real world examples really helps. We mentioned this with integrity or attention to detail, where baristas can, and I've done it just as much as anybody else, where you put the cap on the drink because you kind of know that it's a little underfilled, but you really don't have time for it. And that's a little step in the direction of compromise. And you argue with yourself really quickly in like a split second. Well, it's all out of self-preservation and, kind of don't like my job anyway. And you just kind of go down that road of violating some kind of a value that, if it was a little bit more important to you or a little bit more deeply ingrained in you as a staff member, maybe it would be harder for you to cross that line into that territory of, making that compromise. That's really what I think a lot of leadership, their job is to create an environment that reinforces the highest expression of work and excellence that we all have to bring to the table. And because we're all just, people with limited amounts of energy, emotional capacity, and we're imperfect and we make mistakes and we get grumpy and all this other stuff, there is an ebb and a flow to it. But we're trying to we want to try to close the gap between the times when we're really just not hitting the mark and when we actually do hit the mark, and sometimes even go beyond that. So how we do that is we always encourage people to make the document something that illustrates your point or what that value looks like. We do this by dot, 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 and give somewhat of a short illustration. Now, a step beyond that, for things that really get to the heart of who you are as a company, is to collect stories about things that make you happy as a proprietor of this business, things that you want to see happen in the cafe that are the result of many great decisions of your team. The parent whose child spills a beverage and a gracious staff member, even though they're busy, takes a time to maybe go over and clean it up, no fuss, console them, even, kind of make light of it. And because they know what they're trying to do is say, hey, I know they feel embarrassed right now that their kid did this. And, so I know sometimes parents don't care what their kid does. But let's just say we go there and we give grace to them when we're saying, hey, I want to make you still feel comfortable in the space, even though this happened. And even though I'm busy, I'm still going to do this. And I'm even going to give you a free drink as a replacement or whatever this was. I've done this so many times with people who walk out the door, they just got a mocha, they walk back in, spill the mocha in my car. What do you do? Oh, well, I guess you got to buy a new mocha. No, 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 no. We are going to make you a new mocha. I am so sorry. Wow. And it depends on the mood they're in, but sometimes you joke with them. You're like, I want me to put two lids on this, just like snap it on tight for you. Just careful. But it depends on how well you know them. The point is that the idea of that moment needs to not just disappear. This is something we talk about when we're talking about hospitality and the iconic stories we tell about hospitality. You can read stories like this in Unreasonable Hospitality. The Wil Guidara interview talks about these different moments where they create a legend, they create a story. Your coffee shop has stories. You have stories happening every day in the cafe. But the question is, who's recording these stories? Who's the scribe? Who's got the quill and the inkwell? And who's doing this work so that you can capture the essence of what it is to be this business? And what we stop short with is we create the manual. We've got the punch list of different things we need to do. We say, don't do this. We say, do that. And it is good to have something that guides behavior. It's a step further to illustrate it and say, this is what that looks like in practice, but it's an even better step further to then go into story mode and say, there was a time where at our cafe downtown, something happened where one of our employees had to deal with a customer. They did X, Y, and Z. And you just tell the story of what that barista did, what that meant to the customer, what the customer did in return, and what that virtuous cycle of what a great example of our values that was, and what it does for the company, for the people involved. And when you have a collection of those stories and you give that to the employees that come into your coffee shop as, just being onboarded, boy, they are walking into history. They're not just walking into policy. They're not just walking into rules and regulations. The expectations that you give them in the form of stern and exact language will never be able to do and create the buy-in that a history of service that is well documented can convey to them. So this is what I'm wanting to convey to you. Story has to be a part of the way that you convey your essence to the barista, to the manager, even to yourself. Because as I've heard this said many times by even people we've had on this show, in Founder Friday episodes especially, when we go through and do a retrospective of all the things they've done and had the ups and the downs, the challenges, the lessons they've learned, etc., they'll tell me, boy, we've never really sat down and told our story at such length and with such detail. And it really feels good to do that. Now, doing these kind of stories and having this book of the legends of this cafe that illustrate these wonderful things you want to see perpetuated, this will do the same thing for you. It will show you, even in your dark times, that you have brought about light to your community and to other people's days, you've made so many people's days. I want to encourage you, if you're a new coffee shop or an old coffee shop, there is this ripple effect of your generosity in your service, just the coffee you offer, you're doing it. The thing that you set out to do is so many people say we want to serve our community. Sometimes you don't see it and you feel dejected a little bit. Like it just feels like a hard slog. And truly it is, and often it's just one foot in front of the other. But when you carve out space and time to examine for the proofs of a job well done and illustrations and stories that kind of show what has come about as you've served your community, that's going to be so healing, I think, for you and so encouraging. So start doing that. Start creating stories, collecting them, creating rhythms of recollection of what's happened as a way of then making it more likely that things like that happen in the future as well. So that's all I wanted to share with you today. I hope you're having an amazing week. Thank you so much for supporting this show. And a great way to do that would be to share these episodes on social media. If this one was encouraging to you, then all you need to do is share it. You can do it on LinkedIn or on Instagram. Try to be active on both of those platforms, really, but anywhere is fine. And if you're interested in coaching or consulting, or you just want to say, hey, you can email chris@keystotheshop.com, and I'd love to chat with you. Otherwise, thanks again for all the support and listening today, and we'll see you here next week on another edition of Shift Break, from Keys to the Shop.